Welcome to Hamburgers and Horror, the home of meat, monsters, and man-eating beavers. I'm Noah Hook, and today we're looking at the 2014 horror comedy, Zombeavers. This raging rodent romp follows a group of college friends visiting a remote cabin for the weekend. Cheating boyfriends becomes the least of their problems when a colony of hungry undead beavers starts attacking. Zombeavers was directed by Jordan Rubin in his directorial debut. Rubin got his start in comedy and has written for Last Call with Carson Daly, Dog After Dark, and Critters, a New Binge. He's also directed The Drone, a movie about a killer drone. He wrote the story with Al and John Kaplan, brothers who have written and composed for movies like Piranhaconda, Dino Croc vs. Supergator, and The Hills Have Thighs. Despite its small budget, the film features animatronic beavers, as Rubin prefers the real stuff over CGI. They were made by Mark Rappaport at Creature Effects, where he has worked on I Am Legend, 300, and The Revenant. Zombeavers stars Lexi Atkins from The Boy Next Door in her first acting role, Courtney Palm from Sushi Girl and Silent Night, Rachel Melvin from Days of Our Lives and The Rake, Hutch Dano from Zeke and Luther, Jake Weary from It Follows, It Chapter 2, and Fred the Movie, and Peter Gilroy from Interns. It also features Rex Linn from CSI Miami and Django Unchained. It was shot at the Disney Ranch over 22 days with a small budget of $2 million. It premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival and had a small theatrical release in the United States, and worldwide had a gross of around $50,000. It's been met with mixed reviews, as it's obviously a very niche subject matter in the first place, and it does deal with some of the issues of low-budget horror. But fans of B-movies and satire seem to have fun with it, and it currently has a 70 and 31% on Rotten Tomatoes. I watched Zombeavers for the first time like 4 years ago, and I remember having fun with it, but I'm excited to watch it again and see if it still holds up. I hope y'all are ready to have a damn good time, because we're watching Zombeavers. The movie opens with a medical waste truck driven by Joseph and Luke, played by Bill Burr and fucking John Mayer. They're discussing their possible bisexuality and toilet clogging ability when a distracted Joseph annihilates a deer. One of their toxic barrels goes careening down into a river, and the really funny opening credits show us the barrel's trip downstream. It eventually ends up at a beaver dam and starts spraying the Chompy Boys with its goo. We jump to a gas station bathroom where Jen is crying over something her boyfriend Sam has done. She's interrupted by a pervy local, and she rejoins her friends Zoe and Mary. Mary is looking forward to a weekend without the boys, but Zoe isn't so excited. She's all about that D. We learn Sam has cheated on Jen, so this weekend is to help her get over it. They reach the small town of Ashwood, where a young fisherman loses his pole to a big catch, and we quickly learn it wasn't a fish. They reach Mary's cousin's cabin, and she introduces them to the neighbors Mr. and Mrs. Gregerson. Jen can't get a signal when she tries to secretly call Sam. Mary calls her out and encourages her to enjoy a weekend without cheating, maybe ex-boyfriends. Zoe is furious about the lack of signal, and I can't wait for her to die. The ladies head down to the lake, and Zoe fulfills her role as the promiscuous one by going in topless. While the ladies tan on the raft, the hat of that fishing boy floats by. They notice a beaver dam, and Jen gets them to join her on a beaver search. The dam is covered in toxic waste by now, but they just think it's beaver piss. They're startled by a big old bear, but Smokey is scared away with a gunshot by this local named Smith. Smith is all sorts of creepy, as he warns them about the danger of beavers and advises the women to cover up their indecent bodies. As the group heads back, they are watched by a growly little POV. Night falls, and they're playing a vulgar game of Would You Rather. A brightly lit POV is rushing through the woods, and the fun and games stop when there are thuds at the door. Zoe isn't the least bit frightened, and Mary and Jen are locked out from the inside. As you may have guessed, this is just the arrival of the boys who Zoe invited. We've got Mary's boyfriend Tommy, Zoe's boyfriend Buck, and cheating ass Sam. Mary wants the boys gone, despite pleas from obnoxious ass Buck and Zoe.
I haven't had sex in 36 hours. You know when your foot's asleep? My dick's asleep.
But Jen tells her it's okay. Zoe and Buck and Mary and Tommy go straight to Pound Town, and Jenny confronts the very nonchalant Sam. We see the Facebook post he was tagged in where he is kissing another woman, but he won't confess to who it was. Uh-oh. She gives him 2 slaps, and these two reignite their toxic relationship. Nutshot. I can't wait for these fucking beavers to show up. The couples finish up their coitus, and Tommy notices Mary seems a bit distracted. Uh-oh. Jen gets ready to shower, but there's a beaver in the tub. She runs to Tommy and her screams get everyone's attention. They go to investigate, with Tommy taking the lead, but the beaver is nowhere to be seen. It bursts out of a cabinet, but Tommy smashes it to smithereens before it can bite Buck. They toss the carcass outside and debate whether they should leave or not. They decide to stay, which was a bad call because the bag beaver is still kicking. They head to the lake the next morning and realize the body is gone. They just think a coyote took it, and the others try to convince Jen the lake is safe. Tommy and Buck mock her as she refuses to get in, and Sam confronts Mary about the photo because it turns out she was the one kissing Sam. What? I would have never have guessed. He wants her to tell Jen to help get some of the heat off of him, and he can't resist getting touchy with her, which doesn't go unnoticed by Tommy. They convince Jen to get in, who immediately feels something swim past her. Buck gets pulled under and they think it's a joke until they start seeing blood. Oh shit, they bit off his foot! They swim to the raft and Tommy pulls a beaver off Buck before realizing he's been bit too. They use Gosling the dog's life jacket to cut off Buck's blood loss, and Sam notices a beaver heading their way. Jen rushes back to the cabin to call 911, but those pesky rodents have cut the landline. A beaver attacks Jen inside while more beavers break through the raft. Sam throws Gosling into the water as a diversion, which is smart but super fucked, and the poor pooch is killed. Jen gets onto the kitchen island and the others successfully get to shore. The nearly in half bag beaver is going for Jen's... I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna say it. But she gives it a stab to the head. She lets the others in, and we jump to nightfall, and the group has come to a consensus they are fighting zombie beavers. Sam demonstrates how to kill the brain, and he shows no remorse for killing Gosling. Mary takes Sam's side, which pisses Zoe off enough to spill the tea about the photo. Everyone was aware but Jen and Tommy, but while they are upset, they have bigger problems at the moment. The beavers start growling, and Sam beheads Bag Beaver and tosses the head outside. Sam doesn't want to leave the cabin, so Tommy decides to try for the car to get Buck to a hospital. Zoe goes with him, and they hobble their way into the car and down the driveway. Mrs. Gregerson hears the tires screeching and wants to check up on the kids, but looks like that won't be happening. Tommy and Zoe don't get far as the beavers have blocked off the road. They notice a vacant truck which has a couple of guns and an axe. He gives them to Zoe and tells her to turn around and get the others while he goes ahead on foot. That plan fails immediately when Tommy is crushed by a falling tree. Curse you, beavers! They go for Zoe, but they're shot off by Smith, who helps her get Buck into the truck. Sam, Mary, and Jen are barricading the house, and Mary fights off one trying to get in. They manage to fight off some more, and they scatter when the truck returns. Bitch-ass Sam doesn't want to let them in, but he's clearly not in control. But they can't get the boards off quick enough, and Buck notices a whole zombie-beaver horde. They retreat to the Gregersons, and Smith takes out a couple beavers on the way. They search the home and find the body of Mr. Gregerson and the cut phone lines. Mary is trying to research beavers and make amends with Jen, and Sam is still being a royal jackass every single sentence. Smith finds the body of Mrs. Gregerson and tells Zoe there is no hope of attaching Buck's severed foot, which she has been carrying around since it's been cut off. Jen visits the sleeping Mary and, what's going on here? Mary thinks Jen is secretly in love with her, but that is not the case. Jen's going full beaver and she's ready to take a chunk out of Mary, but Sam conks her with the bat and they escape. Smith is about to cauterize Buck's wound when they are distracted by a snarl outside. While they're not looking, Buck becomes a zombiever as well and eats Smith's face for a really long time thanks to Zoe's awful aim. She accidentally headshots Smith and Buck chases her upstairs. Sam and Mary have locked Jen away, who is thumping around with her new beaver tail. Mary wants to check him for bite marks, but a beaver interrupts from beneath the floor. Zoe is hiding in Mrs. Gregerson's room, which is not good. She is all out of bullets and Texas chainsaws her way out of the second-story window. Sam and Mary are playing a fucked up game of whack-a-mole, but get overwhelmed and flee to the bathroom. They check each other for beaver bites and get to fucking, I guess. A beaver in the house catches on fire and looks like the whole house is going up. Mary smells the smoke, and Zombie Jen bursts through the floor and bites Sam's dick off. Yes, queen. Mary finds herself trapped in the burning cabin until Zoe bursts in with Smith's truck. They start to head out, but a shot from Zombie Smith diverts them into a tree. Zombeaver Gregersons and a Zombeaver bear join in on the fun, but Zoe is able to get the truck out of there. Zombeaver Jen pops down from the roof, but Zoe just breaks and squishes her head. They reach the fallen trees, and Zoe distracts Mary from Zombeaver Tommy. But Mary pulls a gun on Zoe as she thinks she was bitten and will eventually turn. Zoe explains the various events that caused her wounds, but just when Mary is about to shoot her, she starts turning herself. Zoe gives her a swift axe to the head, and quite a few more for good measure. She stumbles down the road and eventually runs into a vehicle. Oh, damn it. There's also a post-credits scene where a bee is infected by a beaver corpse, so keep an eye out for zombies. And that's Zombeavers. This was a pretty fun one. It's definitely the most comedic movie I've covered on the channel so far, and as usual, some comedy worked for me and some didn't so much. Buck is a walking one-liner machine, and there are just generally a few too many vagina jokes. Bill Burr and John Mayer are hilarious though. It's tricky because I think it was mostly intentional, but all of the protagonists really suck. The only character that's not a total shithead is Tommy, and he gets the most unceremonious death of them all. Zoe is a decent sort of final girl, but damn, she was annoying early on. The beavers obviously aren't very high-end, but I think they have a fun charm to them. The beaver noises done by Fred Tatasciore were unique, and they had some funny hijinks throughout the film. The human beaver zombies were a smart addition, and I always appreciate an ending where nobody survives. The movie does have a little bit of trouble with pacing, and the acting itself ranges from solid to okay. The movie looks pretty good for $2 million. Its small budget definitely doesn't show through the cinematography. Zombeavers isn't necessarily a movie to write home about, but I'd say it's definitely worth a watch. If you liked Black Sheep or Slither, chances are Zombeavers will be up your alley as well. It pokes a lot of fun at the genre, but it also has enough subtle nods to classics for a horror veteran to enjoy. Just be prepared to hate all of the characters. I haven't seen The Drone yet, but I think this was a pretty solid first outing for Jordan Rubin and the Kaplan brothers, so I'm definitely going to be on the lookout for more of their work in the future. Well, that's about it. Next week we'll be looking at the first Stephen King-based movie on the channel, 1983's Cujo. Thank you all for joining me, and an extra thank you to my patrons. As always, I'm Noah Hook, and this has been Hamburgers and Horror. Stay safe out there. Thanks for watching my review of Zombeavers. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe so you can keep up with my weekly horror reviews. If you want to help support the channel further, you should check out my Patreon account. You'll be able to vote for future movies and franchises I cover on the channel. Thanks y'all.